I want to first start this video with a memory because this topic of whole life insurance is very personal to me. My family immigrated to the United States from South Korea when I was 9 years old. And because we felt so out of place in this new world, my parents, like a lot of immigrant families, placed enormous trust in their community, specifically their Korean American community. And this community was great. It helped us navigate the language, the culture, the customs, all the invisible rules of a country we were still learning to call home. Thus, when someone from this community showed up with the financial advice, they listened. They didn't have the financial vocabulary or the financial knowledge to push back. And when that person said, I have something that will take care of your family, build your savings, and protect everything you work for, of course, they said yes. The product, as I would later find out, was whole life insurance. My parents trusted what this individual was saying, and a lot of their friends did as well. And this wasn't because they were careless. They just genuinely thought that this person was looking out for their best interest. And at the time, I personally wasn't financially literate enough to ask the right questions, to slow down the conversation to say, wait, let me take a look at this first. When I began to understand how this product actually worked, I felt a quiet, slow anger. Not at my parents, not even entirely at the person who sold it to them, but at a system that is extraordinarily well designed to separate people from their hard-earned money without giving them much in return. So today, I want to tackle this topic head on because I firmly believe that this is something that we all need to understand if we want to ensure we do not fall into the trap that my parents did. Before we get into the details, let's step back first to understand what whole life insurance actually is. There are really just two kinds of life insurance that matter for this conversation. The first is term life insurance. It's very simple and it does one thing. It covers you for a defined period of time, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And if you die during that period, your beneficiary receives the death benefit. If you're still alive at the end of the term, the policy expires. That is pretty much it. It does exactly what insurance is supposed to do. The second is whole life insurance, the main topic of this video. This is where things get a bit more complicated. Whole life, as the name states, covers you for your entire life. It never expires. You pay premiums until death, and your beneficiaries collect. But there is a second feature layered on top of the death benefit, a cash value component. As you pay your premiums, a portion of that money accumulates in a savings-like account within the policy. It grows over time. You can borrow against it while you're alive. If you decide to cancel the policy, you can surrender it and collect whatever has built up. Insurance for life, a saving vehicle built right in. So on the surface, on a quick glance, the whole life sounds and feels like more, right? You're getting more for your dollars. But the real question you need to ask yourself is this: more for whom? To answer that question, we just need to look at some real numbers. For a healthy 40-year-old man, a $500,000 whole life insurance policy runs approximately $5,500 per year in premiums. That's roughly $460 a month. A $500,000 term life insurance policy for the exact same person, about $500 per year. Not per month, per year. The difference between these premiums is $5,000 every single year. Over 20 years, that is $100,000 in additional money you're paying, on top of what you pay for a simple, straightforward term coverage. And what do you get for that extra money? They'll tell you. You're getting the cash value, the savings component, the thing that makes this product feel like an investment. But here's what the cash value actually earns. According to data from Quotacy, a life insurance analytics firm, the average annual rate of return on whole life cash value is between 1 and 3.5%. Meanwhile, the stock market, specifically a broad total market index fund, has returned roughly 8 to 10% annually on average over decades. But there's something else worth noting about these returns. They don't start on day one. In fact, the return on a whole life policy is generally negative for at least the first decade. Why? Because in the early years, the bulk of your premiums isn't going towards your cash value at all. It is going towards agent commissions and the insurance company's admin fees. You're essentially funding the sale before you're funding your own savings. I know, almost criminal, right? Now, to hammer this point even more, let's actually see the number in action. Let's actually run a scenario using that $5,000 annual difference. Imagine someone who bought a whole life policy at 40. They've been paying $5,500 a year. Now, it's 20 years later. They paid $110,000 in total. They call the insurance company and ask about their surrender value. The answer? Roughly $70,000. So they paid $110,000 and can walk away with $70,000, a $40,000 loss on paper. But that's only half the real cost. The other half is what the money could have become. The same dollars, $5,500 a year, invested in a simple index fund over 20 years at 8%, would have grown to approximately $250,000. Instead, they have $70,000. The variance is $180,000. The difference between the $250,000 they could have had and the $70,000 they would actually walk away with. And it gets worse over time. At 30 years, the variance grows to roughly more than $500,000. At 40 years, to roughly $1.3 million. Those are some big gaps. And the worst part is that this is not money they spent recklessly or money they wasted. No, this was hard-earned money they thought they were investing. They just didn't realize it was the wrong product. By the way, if you want to run your own scenarios with your own numbers, I built a free compound interest calculator for situations just like this. You can take the difference between what you would pay in whole life premiums versus what a term policy would cost you and run some scenarios on what your money could grow into based on different annual returns and different time horizons. The numbers will speak for themselves. The tool is completely free and available for you to access in the description below. Just my small gift to you for taking your precious time to admire my ridiculously amazing hair for this long. And if you want to take this further and get personalized guidance on your own situation, whether that's figuring out the right coverage, what to do if you're already in a policy, or how to start putting that premium difference to work, that's exactly what the Financial Tortoise community is for. It's a private membership community where you get access to one-on-one coaching with me, live Q&A calls, and a custom AI assistant trained on all my teachings, available 24/7. Enrollment is limited and only opens a few times a year. So head over to financialtortoise.com/community to join the waitlist and get party access when doors open. Alright, so as you can see from the examples I walked through and from numbers you run yourself via the compound interest calculator, whichever way you slice it, you almost always come out on the losing end with whole life insurance. So then, at this point you might be asking, if these products are that bad, why are they so prevalent? Why do I see them everywhere in the market? The answer to that is quite simple. All we have to do is follow the money. Let's really understand how agents get paid. Let's follow the money. When an agent sells you a term life insurance policy, they earn a commission of roughly 50 to 80% of your first year's premium. On a $500 a year term policy, that works out to somewhere between $250 and $400 in year one. A decent commission, but not life-changing. But what about whole life insurance? When an agent sells you a whole life insurance policy, they earn a commission of 70% to 110% of your first year's premium. On a $5,500 a year whole life policy, that's between $3,900 and $6,000 in year one. Then, they continue collecting renewal commissions, typically 2 to 5% of your annual premium, for years afterwards. So if you're an insurance agent wanting to make more money, what would you do? The answer is obvious. You push whole life every time to everyone, because a single whole life sale pays you 10 to 15 times more than a term sale on day one, and then keeps paying you for years after. There's a good reason why this old saying in financial services is still around. Life insurance is sold, not bought. That is exactly what that saying means. Nobody wakes up and decides to go buy a whole life insurance policy the way they buy a car or a pair of shoes. They're approached, they're pitched, they're walked through an illustration that makes the numbers look appealing. And the person doing the walking is compensated handsomely for every successful close. Now, I want to be fair here. Not every agent who sells whole life insurance is a bad person. Many are simply individuals trying to make a living, following a script handed down by corporate, doing their best to hit a monthly sales target. The system was designed long before they showed up to work. But that system has one purpose, and it is not to look out for your best interests. It was designed to look out for theirs. As Charlie Munger once said, show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome. Alright, so then how to ensure you don't become a target of their ploy? It starts with understanding and identifying their tactics. Let me go over 3 common whole life insurance tactics the industry has developed to reach the people most likely to say yes. And recognize these didn't come by accidents. No, they're finely engineered to extract as much money as possible. The first tactic is a familiarity play. Insurance companies intentionally train their salespeople to start with their own networks. Friends, family, neighbors, members of the same church, the same cultural community. People who share a language, a history, a sense of trust. Why? Because when you're presented a financial product from someone you know, someone you trust, what happens? Your guard drops. Psychologists have a name for this: familiarity bias. Our brains are wired to associate familiar faces with safety. The life insurance industry understands this better than almost anyone else. This is how my parents ended up buying whole life insurance. A familiar face, a warm conversation. So the transaction felt like an active community, not a sale. And their situation is not unique. According to Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, older Americans lose an estimated $3 billion every year to financial exploitation. And life insurance is one of the primary vehicles through which that money moves. The second tactic is called churning. Churning is when an agent approaches someone who already holds a whole life policy, someone who has been paying premiums for years, sometimes for decades, and sells them a brand new policy to replace the old one. The pitch sounds reasonable. This new policy is better structured, and you can fund it using the cash value you already built up. No extra cost to you. But here is what gets left out of that conversation. Every time you take a loan against your old policy's cash value to fund a new one, you reduce your debt benefit and you accumulate savings in the existing policy. If the cash value is depleted before you can repay it, and it often happens, both policies lapse. You lose everything you paid in. The coverage disappears. The savings disappear. No insurance, no savings, nothing to show for years of premium payments. However, the agent, at this point, has collected a fresh first-year commission on the new policy. Churning has been documented by insurance regulators and consumer protection agencies as one of the most persistent forms of financial predatory strategies. The third tactic is the term-to-whole conversion push. Many people hold a simple, affordable term life policy. It does the job. It protects their family. But then at some point, often around renewal time, an agent calls with an offer. Your term policy will eventually expire. What happens to your family then? With a whole life, you're protected forever. I can help you convert. What the pitch doesn't say is this. The agent's motivation for making that call is a commission on a brand new whole life policy. If you agree to convert, your monthly premium will increase, sometimes dramatically, turning a manageable cost into a significant monthly obligation. The right answer for the vast majority of people is to thank them and hang up. Alright, so let me take a pause here because we covered a lot. We cover what whole life insurance, why the numbers don't work in your favor, and how the industry is designed to keep selling. So now the real question is this. What should you do instead? What is the best alternative to a whole life insurance if I want to protect my family as well as grow my wealth? Well, I have great news for you. The alternative is not only better financially, but it is actually ridiculously simple. Let's deploy what I like to call the term life plus an index fund strategy. 1. Buy a term life insurance policy, 20 or 30 years, a death benefit of 10 to 15 times your income. For most healthy adults, this will cost a few $100s a year, not a few thousand. 2. Then take that money you're not spending on whole life premiums and invest it. A low-cost, broad market index fund, VTI, VTSAX, FSKAX. That is it. Super simple strategy. You have insurance for protection from catastrophic events that could devastate the people who depend on you. Then you have investments for building wealth. Two different tools built for two different purposes working perfectly together. Alright, but you might be saying, Tay, this is all great information and all, but what if I'm already knee-deep in a whole life insurance? What if I'm already many years in? What should I do then? Well, great question. So let me share with you a simple framework to help you make your decision. What to do if you're already in a whole life policy. The first thing I want you to understand is the sunk cost fallacy. The sunk cost fallacy is our human tendency to keep pouring money into something. A bad investment, a failing business, a product that isn't working, simply because we already put so much into it. The thinking goes, I paid in too much to walk away now. But here's the truth about sunk cost. The money you already paid is gone. No decision you make today changes that. Staying in a bad product doesn't recover what you lost. It just adds to the loss. The only question that actually matters is this. What is the right move from this moment going forward? With that framing in mind, here's a simple decision framework. 1. If your policy is nearly paid up, meaning you're in the final years of premiums or the policy is close to being fully funded, it may make sense to keep it. You have already absorbed most of the cost. The bleeding is nearly over. Accept the death benefit as coverage you essentially paid for and move on. 2. If you're in the early to middle years of a policy and the surrender value is still well below what you paid in, seriously consider canceling. Get back whatever cash value has accumulated. Stop the loss now before more years of premiums compound the damage. Then take that money and the freedom monthly premium and put it to work in a term policy and an index fund. 3. And if an agent is currently calling you, pushing a conversion, an upgrade, a new policy funded by your existing cash value, decline. Ask for anything they're proposing in writing. Before you make any decision, call the insurance company directly, not the agent, and ask two simple questions. What is my current surrender value? And when, if ever, will this policy be fully paid up? Those two answers will tell you almost everything you need to know. And when you have them, you can make a clear-headed decision based on math, not emotion and not pressure. In closing, let me wrap up this video with this. Whenever I hear whole life insurance, I can't help but think about my parents. They were not naive. They were not reckless. They were trusting. Trusting in the way that people are when they're building something new in an unfamiliar place. When they're trying to do right by their family and they don't yet know all the rules of the game. And most of the people who end up in this trap are the same. They were doing what felt responsible. They were pitched by someone they trusted in language that sounded like protection and opportunity. The problem was never the people buying. The problem is the system doing the selling. So understand how this works. The math, the commissions, the tactics, because that really is the only real protection. And if this video helped clarify something you've been wondering about, please consider sharing it with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you guys for watching the theme of money mistakes. If you want to learn why some of the smartest people are the worst with money, please check out my video here. Until next time, all the best.